everybody. Welcome back to episode 37 of the Canberra Football Show, reviewing all things round 14. Unfortunately, had a few washouts this week, so we don't have as many matches, but we do have just as quality a discussion to bring to the table. First, we welcome back to the show Russ Gibbs. Russ, how are you going today? Much better than last week.
I'm great, and I just want to say congratulations on your Euro win. You didn't invite me on last week. I assume you thought I might have been sulking a little bit.
I was thinking about bringing you and Paul Townsley on. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy just to rub it in your face. So
I thought it was a good game at the end of the day, and I thought your man in nets, Donnarumma, just proved exactly what he was. Great goalkeeper. And when he gets to penalties and you've got to get past someone who's 9'7", and he fills the entire goal up, it's quite difficult. So, I mean, the fact he was off his line for every single one he saved, and VAR didn't look at it.
Hey, let's be honest though, Switzerland started that trend, did they not?
They did. I think they did. Yeah, no, that was good. It was a good tournament, wasn't it? It was good to have football on for a month, and I think we all felt a bit like, I don't know about you, but I was quite let down when I nothing to watch at 5 a.m. in the morning when my kids woke me up. So I was happy to see that the Premier League clubs had some pre-season friendlies yesterday, so I got to watch United and Derby last night.
And the Olympics are on, let's not forget, in a couple of days.
9:15, is it?
Australia are both on. I think the first Matildas match is at 9:30 and the first men's match is at 8:30. So all our time, the latest time we're going to get for the Olympics matches at 9:30 at night. That's pretty
fantastic.
Good.
Beautiful.
I believe.
Well, that's better than... Yeah.
I'm not sure if one of them made the finals, I'm not sure what it'd be then. But for the group games, I'm pretty sure the latest match is 9:30 and that's the women's. Latest match for men's is 8:30.
Yeah, the only sour point, obviously, on the whole Euros experience was that thing at the end with the racial abuse of the three lads. And I saw that the German Olympic team walked off in midweek for their friendly against Honduras because one of their players was racially abused. So hopefully it doesn't get to the stage where they have to keep doing that before something gets done. But I think we're all on the same page about that anyway. So
look, we certainly are. It's not good to see and glad to see people are taking a stand in that regard. Michael, welcome back to the show. How's it going today?
Yeah, I'm good, Matt. It's good to see, that I'm getting that constant reminder from you that Italy have won the Euros because you just can't seem to take off any Italian shirt that you've got. So
yeah, Paul. So I did the commentary with Paul Townsend. He's like, if you bring an Azzurri shirt, I'm walking off. And I'm like, and then I showed up to the show, to the game. I'm like, Paul, luckily my shirt's in the wash. And then it's like, yeah, it's probably in tatters by now. I'm like, yeah, probably. Let's be honest.
Michael, the positive thing is there's a World Cup next year, so at least we only get it for 6 months, for 12 months rather than
a little
20,
longer.
Yeah, that's right.
Like 14, 16 months now.
Rather than 2 years of it.
That's right.
All right, let's start the show a little bit differently since we don't have as many matches to talk about. Obviously, a lot of the matches were washed out due to the rain, and let's not forget half the pitches that the NPL teams play on are multi-purpose pitches. And what's led this discussion is the Gungahlin enclosed stadium that was used by either rugby league or union on the Saturday, and it was left as an absolute mosh pit. I even showed someone at work today who is mostly an AFL guy, and he looked at it and he's like, "Oh wow, that's quite a bit." And for people from those sports who are used to playing on stuff like that or have played on that before, even they were like, geez, that's pretty bad. And they'd understand that it's very hard to play football on it. So yeah, let's chat about this a little bit. Russ, you can lead the way since you're the influencer online.
No, Diego Iglesias sent me the picture and I was so disgusted by what I'd seen. He told me it was rugby league that had done it. And I was more annoyed the fact that it's ruined it for not just football, but it's ruined it for AFL as well, because you can't play on that. I mean, you come down from, I'm no AFL expert, but you come down from a mark on a frozen field that was rutted like that, and your knees are going, your ankles are going. Again, that's going to take months and months to fix. And that's going to take you talking about trying to get some grass on that. So cricket in the summer, I mean, that field's possibly out of action for a long time. I'm no expert on fields either, but it just looked it was no consideration for any other sport to play on it. And I know they've got to play their games and fine, there's as much as everybody else. But on a multi-purpose field where there's other sports to take into consideration as well, I thought it was a little bit selfish of that code to actually go ahead and do it. And I think everybody has mostly agreed with us in that respect as well. And I think there's it wasn't just the only field in Canberra that was played on by that code. Union called off a game, I think, at Queanbeyan Campese Oval because they knew that the damage would be done and they wouldn't be able to play on it for a few weeks. So they had the foresight to do it. Other union teams did too as well. So you just wonder why that code decided that they'd go ahead with their matches. It just beggars belief, really.
Any thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, Russ, you touched on it there with the with the sort of photo and the video that was sort of going around from the Gunners stadium there of the state of the pitch, and I mean seeing that video, I just couldn't believe it. To be quite honest, I was almost in shock, like in awe. To see the state that it had been left in, and that's sort of the problem and the issue with these sort of multi-sport venues when sort of situations like this come around where there's a lot of rain and particularly in rugby league, you can sort of play on those conditions because the ball that they use and the rules obviously doesn't make them have to play the ball sort of on the ground predominantly most of the time, like it does in football. So I mean, when they've got a game going on there and they're sort of running around and tearing the pitch up, it has a massive fallback in relation to football games that have to be played on these grounds, because you can't pass a football around in that. You can't run around. You can't play the game the way that you want to in those conditions. And I'm not really sure where we sort of go from here. I know that we're not sport for choice in terms of venues around sort of the Canberra region, and we need to be sharing these grounds so we can cover multiple sports. But I think in situations like this, it sort of just makes me think, it'd be great to sort of have sort of more grounds around Canberra that were sort of just more football based. And if we had situations like this where there's a lot of rain, then games would get cancelled like normal, but there wouldn't be sort of any other sports being played on it to damage the field. And, that takes, months on end to just recover. So,
and we're not bashing a code here. I mean, this isn't
about definitely not
the code. They've got every right to play
if
they feel that they should do. In the UK, Saracens played their Premiership rugby games on a hybrid turf, artificial grass turf, and they play Union on that as well. So you're wondering, why can't the rugby codes together get themselves a hybrid field or two? And then, yes, it costs money, but surely that would be a way ahead. And then if they do get wet weather, they could take their game to that hybrid field and play on it. And obviously realistic, it costs a lot of cash to do that, but surely it's a better way ahead for everybody. Yeah,
most definitely. It's just, it just begs the question if the money's there to do so. Obviously it would do better for everyone involved in all the sport codes as well. But I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it's something that that we've witnessed before, and it's just unfortunate. And like you said, Russ, we're not bashing on these sports or anything like that. We understand that they have games to play. It's just on the flip side of that. It's just always a little disappointing that the pitches do take time to recover, especially when there's a lot of rainfall going around Canberra.
Both those codes that we talked about as well have got teams in the top tier of their sport with more finances than football, and yet football's managed to build itself some artificial surfaces that are good enough to play on when we do have games that are cancelled. And players don't want to play on them all the time, but rather than not play, at least you can have a couple of games on it. So I think there's probably something for them to look at. And as you said, we don't bash other sports. Football fans seem to be far more relaxed with our place in the world.
Yeah.
Fans of other sports.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, remember, was it like a month ago or something, like when they knew it was going to rain on the weekend, on a Thursday or something, Capital Football ended up moving literally like 90% of the matches, including NPL2, which last year they didn't move any NPL2 matches at last minute to synthetic. Do you reckon they'll do something like that this weekend, since it seems like there's going to be at least 4 days of rain? At the moment, it's 80%, 4 days of rain from Thursday to Sunday.
I think there's already one game on the synthetic anyway, isn't there? I think
NPL2.
Wanderers not home as well this weekend. I can't remember.
Let me check if the Brindis.
In the NPL1, I think Melrose synthetic, West Canberra.
Yeah, Melrose. Yeah, West Canberra versus Gungahlin.
West Canberra. So I mean, the fields might be available. Look, I mean, you look at O'Connor. That's due to be played on this weekend. Nigel Oval is due to be played on this weekend. I'm already hearing today that might not happen. There's another, 4 days worth of rain coming in from Wednesday through the weekend. So I'm sure there'll be some changes going around.
And it rained today as well.
Yeah.
North side anyway.
So look, I mean, I'm sure they've got some things up their sleeves. I mean, there's a pile of matches coming up in midweek as well for us to look at when they start rearranging them as well. So it's not all bad news, but I think it's frustrating for everybody involved when we get situations like we saw on the weekend.
Oh, look, it certainly is. But hopefully this weekend, if there is heaps of rain, the majority of the matches can be moved onto those pitches, because we do have some situations like with NPL2 where White Eagles, for example, have 2 matches to play at the moment.
Is that one of them this week, supposedly? Is that right? Queanbeyan White Eagles sometime this week?
I hope it's midweek, but before that happens, though, they've still got 2 matches to replay. So you don't want a situation where a team has...
I meant their replay game in the first round,
It should be, but you don't want a situation where you could have a team possibly having 3 matches to play during the last 7 matches of the year. Because we're on to the last 7 rounds at the moment, and you don't want a situation where, like, for example, White Eagles, you don't want them to have 3 games to play all of a sudden. So
that's all right. I spoke to Ryan Grogan on Saturday morning, and I said you can play Monera Panthers on the Tuesday as a warm-up, Apia Leichhardt in the FFA Cup on the Wednesday, and then Gungahlin on the Thursday as your recovery. sounds fine, doesn't it?
Certainly does. All right, let's get
a whole lot of player cramps in those 3 days, I tell you.
Yeah, we just discussed it there. So let's get straight into NPL1, shall we? All the 2 matches that we've got at the moment. Belconnen United got a massive win, 1-0 over West Canberra Wanderers. Fields got the own goal there. Unfortunate own goal from Fields proved to be the difference. As the big takeaway from this encounter, of course, is this is Belconnen's first victory since they beat Canberra, Croatia. Was it in round 5, Russ?
Yeah.
So that long time coming. They'll see it as a long time coming anyway, Belconnen. The question for them is, can they use this as a platform to start getting some string of wins together? In terms of West Canberra, that's a couple of losses in a row now. But for West Canberra, whenever they've been in a position where they've got like 2 or 3 losses in a row, Ulysses de Silva and the side seem to reinvigorate themselves, find a new plan, and end up getting on a positive stretch themselves. They find themselves in 4th place now, and Gungahlin United still have that match in hand against the Tigers. So it looks like they've sort of cemented themselves in 3rd place for the time being, but it's still very open. So I'm intrigued to see how West Canberra bounce back, because like I mentioned, they've already done that a couple times this season where they've bounced back from some not so great form. So Russ, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think they'll be disappointed, West Canberra. They didn't come away with something from the game. It's a winnable match for them, as it was for Belconnen United. You talked about the goal early on. It was a great free kick from Dustin Wells, and poor Lachlan Fields couldn't really do anything but stick a leg out, and Mason Interlandi had no chance. Other than that, chances very few and far between for both teams. It was a bit of a midfield battle, and it was a horrible day. It was cold. It was miserable. It had been raining, and the game didn't really hit any great heights. But I don't think Fab Michelli will really care. They got the 3 points on the board, and that's important for them. As you said, it's only put them into 6th on 17 points, but there's that big log jam of teams now that are pushing. And I mentioned the other week that 5 into 2 doesn't go, and we're still looking at that. And that's assuming that Canberra, Croatia, and Tigers stay where they are in the top 2 positions. But good result for Belconnen United. They needed that. Just goes to show how tight the league is. If you've not won since round 5 and you're still in with a shout for the top 4. West Canberra Wanderers. Well, we talked about whether they're bounced back, didn't we? And then they got themselves a win a couple of weeks ago, and and they're back to square one again. And I think at the moment with them, it's just finding the right balance with their team. Yeah, he had Jay Selden on the bench on the weekend. Marko Jadric had an injured arm from the clash at Tigers when he was caught by Nathan Mejic, so he didn't start, and that made a big difference for them as well. But it was a game that could have gone either way, and the early goal settled it.
And you were at the game. How well did the McKellar pitch hold up? Because I've talked to a few people, and it seems to drain quite well. I know it was made specifically for football at the time, so it was made to also made to sort of drown out any situation. So can you just explain that for the viewers at home that said, "Wow, look at that pitch"?
If you get out to McKellar Evan, you watch it, you get down to Pitch Club, you'll see it. It kind of goes like this. There's a kind of little bow to it in the middle. So it drains from the middle out to the side. So any rain that comes on it obviously drains off, and it's really well designed in that respect. Makes it horrible for some players when you're chasing the through ball sometimes, because it just bounces off down that hill. It's not noticeable as such, but yeah, it was in fantastic condition. It had the 23s on it, much like Deakin Stadium was the day later, and the credit to the grounds crew at both those for getting those games on. But it goes back to the point we made at the start of the broadcast, doesn't it? Both those grounds, football specific, hasn't had any heavy traffic. They can pull games off and on when they like. And this is what happens. We get two matches on pristine surfaces.
Next matchup, we have Canberra, Croatia up against Gungahlin United. And I mean, well, what a result for Gungahlin United. I'm not sure too many people would have expected a result as big as this coming. So we had Bernardo Madrid on the score sheet for Gungahlin. He scored a double, whereas Michael John finished off the game with a fantastic hat-trick, and Barak got on the score sheet for Canberra, Croatia. It's another astonishing result at the expense of Canberra, Croatia, and it's really not looking good for the defending champions at the moment. These last 2 weeks have proved exactly to be the case. You know, conceding 5 goals at home in back-to-back games is a serious cause of concern, I'd say, for the playing group and coach Dean Ugrinic. You know, the Croatia defense, they've been exposed again as they struggle to deal with, you know, the attacking threat that Gunners do possess with the array of talent that they have up there, like I mentioned, with Bernardo Madrid and Michael John wreaking absolute havoc. And, you know, it was just a scintillating display from the away side. And I mean, if you're Marcel Munoz, you've got to be absolutely pleased with that result. And those are the sort of performances that Gungahlin are definitely capable of with the personnel that they have. But they just haven't managed to really sort of build that on any sort of consistent basis throughout the season. But I mean, this performance was right up there with the very best that they've put forward this year. Russ, what did you make of this result? Obviously 4 goals in the second half from Gungahlin United to really stamp their authority in this game and make it a very convincing victory in the end.
Yeah, deja vu for Canberra, Croatia, wasn't it? And they got caught on the break like they did the week before against Olympic. And they're absolutely ruthless, whether the defence was too square, whether they played too high up the park, and whether the Gungahlin frontline was just too good. It was a great performance from Marcel Munoz and his team. He would have been absolutely chuffed with the introduction of his substitutes as well. Ethan Stamatis came on and created a goal. Tommy Kirkledge came on and played his part in one of the goals. All his subs that he brought on did a job for him, and they were just ruthless. I've struggled to remember Sam Brown really having a save to make, and yet he's picked the ball out of the net 5 times again. He must be wondering what's going on. Questions will be asked, of course, for Canberra, Croatia. It's not the end of the world. My mind goes back, being a United fan, to the mid-90s when United got beat 6-3 at Southampton and 5-0 at Newcastle in successive weeks. And the writing was on the wall for Ferguson, and they were saying they're all done, and they went and won the double. So, I mean, it happens sometimes to good teams. You get caught out and it becomes a bit of a slump. It's how they react to it. And this weekend, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is a perfect time to turn around and show them what they're capable of. I mean, there was a turning point in the game. At 1-0, Josh Laguda brings down Daniel Barac as he's in on goal. Many people have had conversations with me about it, and I spoke to the referee about it as well. And it was one of those ones that could have gone 50-50. If he'd been sent off, I think nobody would have complained. If he gets a yellow card, nobody's really complaining. You're like, well, would Barac have got on the end of the ball? I said at the time, I think as a striker, I'm feeling that I would have got that and scored. You know, that's how my mentality would have worked. As a keeper, you're thinking, well, I've sent him wide. He's not getting that ball, so it's a yellow card. So it's one of those things that football incidents, doesn't it? But games can turn like that because he didn't have a substitute goalkeeper, Marcel Munoz. So they would have had to play, would have been 65 minutes or so with 10 men and an outfield player in goal, and that probably changes the whole complexion of the match. But let's take nothing away from Gungahlin United. Ruthless on the break. Bernardo Madrid in great form with 2 goals. Michael John took his goal superbly. Those two with Mishkan Omoski, one of the best front lines in the competition. And when you've got those players that can score, you're going to go far. And I said in commentary on the weekend, their start of the season where they got 5 points from the first 5 games seems an awful long way away now, doesn't it? All of a sudden, we're talking about them as being potential title contenders, getting themselves back into the mix with that game in hand against Tigers. And great performance for Gungahlin. Slight undertone to that game as there has been a few times. I think it boils back to the last time Gungahlin put 5 past Canberra, Croatia. I don't think that went down very well with too many people involved with Canberra, Croatia. And those games have been feisty affairs since then. And it continued on the weekend. There was a fair bit going on off the ball, challenges going in. And to counter the Josh Laguda argument, I actually thought that Gungahlin should have had a penalty. I thought Matt Gerder should have brought down Michael John in the first half as well. So swings and roundabouts, that's football for you.
Matt, any thoughts on this result?
I'm looking forward to see how, we'll talk about it in a bit, but I'm looking forward to see how Canberra Croatia back up against Tigers, because the theme here has been over the last couple of weeks is that Canberra Croatia have been done on the break with a lot of pace. And we all know that's what Tigers do best. I know they have the upper hand historically over the last few fixtures against the Tigers, but if they don't come up with the solution quickly, there might be an issue on the weekend. But they usually do always show up for this Tigers match. So I'm really intrigued to see the match this weekend. Not that I wasn't already, because this is always a big match, but I'm even more intrigued to see with this little subplot that we've got. But credit, like you mentioned, credit to Gungahlin United. It seems like the last couple of weeks, they really have been finding their consistency. They've been finding their momentum. Like Russ mentioned, all the subs that have come on have done really well. All the youngsters are doing really well. They're stepping up to the mark whenever they come on. And I guess what's important for Gungahlin as well is more than just Bernabeu Madrid is being clinical in the box, which was probably something that wasn't at the start of the season. It was probably just Bernabeu Madrid that was being consistent in front of goals. Now you've got a variety of players being consistent in front of goals, which is great to see. So, and
the creativity behind that ball from Robbie Kachenko.
Fantastic.
Straight after they went to 2-1 when Daniel Barach scored, was a great ball, and Michael John took it superbly well. Not quite sure what happened with the Daniel Barach goal. It was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? Bernard Rene, I don't know whether he kicked the ball into his own foot or just missed it. Gave him an absolute gift. But I think Daniel Barach is suspended now for the weekend as well. And Jason Ugrinich had a medial tear. Matt Waters has a groin strain. So whether they're going to be back on the weekend is possibly doubtful as well. So there's 3 big players already out for a team that's been shipped 10 goals in 2 games.
It's certainly going to be an interesting foray into the weekend. Good little segue there, Michael. What are our round 15 matches?
Yeah, so first up, we've got West Canberra Wanderers against Gungahlin United, Saturday, July 24th, 1:15 at Melrose Synthetic. As we were sort of discussing before, given the synthetic surface, we probably will see this game go ahead. I'm going to go for a Gungahlin United victory here. I think you can't come off a better result than the one that they managed to pick up against Canberra, Croatia, and they've really got to ride that wave of momentum that they've got at this moment in time, and they're playing some great football. All their attacking players are playing sensationally well, and they're really looking to sort of cement themselves now as like you mentioned before, Russ, a title contender after a slow start to the season. So I expect them to continue that momentum, but it certainly won't be easy as well. West Canberra Wanderers are obviously a quality side. They've picked up great results throughout the year. So it's going to be a tightly contested game at Melrose, but I do expect Gungahlin just to pip it slightly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Gungahlin here, but it's not going to be as it's not going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. Wanderers will come up with a good game plan to sort of combat Gungahlin. I think this is going to be a close one, but like you mentioned, Gungahlin absolutely lethal on the counter. All their young players are playing really well, and up front they are just very efficient at the moment. I'm going to go with the Gungahlin United victory. Any thoughts on this one, Russ?
Yeah, big game for Gungahlin, this, isn't it? Because you don't want to go away for 3 points, beating Canberra, Croatia convincingly like you did, and then drop points here. Because what will happen if they win on the weekend, they'll start to create that little bit of gap between them and West Canberra Wanderers as well, which you talked about them wanting to cement that third place position, this is a perfect time to do it. Get out there on the synthetic. They had a great result there earlier in the season. I think it was 4-1 in the first match of the campaign. So there'll be confidence flowing through the veins. Eric Gungahlin United. West Canberra Wanderers will need a recovery from themselves, and it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up a draw. But the form that the Gunners are in and the form their forwards are in, you'd expect them to win.
Yeah, I think before we move on to the next match, I think it's also important to note that, you've got West Canberra Wanderers in 4th position there, but just underneath them, Canberra Olympic, they've got a game in hand and they're actually 2 points behind them. So there's a lot for West Canberra to be playing for up against this game against, sorry, my God, I've just had a bit of a brain explosion. Against Gungahlin, that's right. So there's a lot on the line for them because they've been a top 4 side for most of the season, but there's sort of recent lapses where, like you mentioned earlier, where they've gone 2-3 games suffering losses. It's put them in difficult positions to, maintain their top 4 status. And, you've just got Olympic there that are 2 points off with that game in hand. So, I mean, if they take advantage of that, West Canberra find themselves out of the top 4, and then they're really fighting hard to try and get themselves back in it. So it's a very, very important game for them in terms of their top 4 hopes. Let's move on to the next game.
Just before you do, Marco, just have a game in hand against Tuggeranong as well. So it's one they'll look at if they can win and really put the pressure on. So, I mean, again, Tuggeranong will hope they can win as well. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, and sorry, before we move on to the next match, I forgot to mention the matches that were postponed this week. Thanks for pointing that out to me, Russ. We had Monaro Panthers and Tigers FC replay of the FFA Cup qualifying final that was postponed, and Tuggeranong United against Canberra Olympic. So
I was more pointing out the Olympics games against Tuggeranong. So
there you go. Yeah. All right, what's our next matchup?
So we've got Canberra Olympic up against the Monaro Panthers Saturday, July 24th, 3 p.m. at O'Connor enclosed. So we'll see how O'Connor is going to hold up. But I did see photos of that ground as well, and it's not looking too good. But we'll just see how things sort of play out during the week and if that game is going to go ahead or not. But regardless, it's going to be a very tough contest. I mean, Canberra Olympic obviously coming on the back of that fantastic win that they got against Canberra, Croatia, 5-1 at Deakin Stadium. And the Panthers building a little bit of momentum now as well, as they sort of look to build up on points and really get themselves in that top 4 picture. I'm going to go for a draw, a share of the spoils in this one. I think it's going to be a very tight match. I can't really pick either side based on their form at the moment. So I think it's just going to be better for me to stay on the fence and go with the draw in this one. I can't really pick any sort of area where, or any significant area where one team has a massive advantage over the other at this moment in time. Both teams are playing well. So I'm going to go for a draw in this game.
Yeah, look, I think you're spot on there. I don't think there will be much of a massive advantage between each side. I'm going to go slightly with the Monaro victory. I think they're going to be raring to go because I know they beat Tuggeranong, but they wouldn't have been happy with the way that match started for them. They went behind and Tuggeranong were on top of them for large periods of that game until their red card. So they had a strong end to the match, but they'll be looking to rectify how that match started for them. And in terms of Olympic, it could easily be a draw and an Olympic win because the way they played against Canberra, Croatia was absolutely stunning, and they thoroughly deserve that victory. But I'm just going to go with the Monaro one here, but very tight margins in this one, not a lot in it. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Russ?
Yeah, I think Robbie Catnash should be disappointed his team didn't get to play on the weekend to ride the wave of that 5-1 win over Canberra, Croatia. They'll fancy their chances at home against the Panthers. They've got a lot of pace on the break, and the Panthers don't particularly enjoy playing against pacey teams. But they're slowly coming good, aren't they, Monaro? They haven't quite hit their straps, but they're picking up points when it matters. It's going to be a good game. This one is our Saturday game on Bar TV. Myself and Andy Burnell should be bringing you this one, weather permitting. Might end up at West Canberra Wanderers Gungahlin, depending on if things don't get shifted. But I think it's going to be a good game, this one. I think there's going to be plenty of goals in it. It's difficult to pick a winner, isn't it? And I wouldn't be surprised if it is a draw.
Next game, we have Tuggeranong United up against Belconnen United, Sunday, July 25th, 3 p.m. at Canberra there. So this one's going to be tough. Obviously, there's a lot going well for Belconnen United in terms of finally getting themselves back in the winners column. That's going to give that playing group, a lot of confidence heading into an away fixture like this. And Matt, you touched on it there with Tuggeranong United before about their encounter with Menera, and they got the lead in that one. They're playing very well up until they, got the red card and were down to 10 men. Obviously, they're still seeking their first victory as well. Does it come this weekend? I'm not too sure. I think I'm going to go with Belconnen United. I think that the fact that they've regrouped, they've managed to put those past results behind them and finally get themselves a very important win that's going to do their top four hopes a massive favour. I expect them to carry that over into this Tuggeranong game.
Yeah, look, I think this has the writings of a draw, in my opinion. I remember calling this game with Russ when these teams last faced each other. Belconnen were sort of on top at first, and they seemed like to create a lot of chances, but then Tuggeranong started to get into the game, and it was probably a well-deserved draw at the end of the matchup. Tuggeranong, like I mentioned, they were, like I said, they'll be disappointed they didn't get a result from that one after their red card. They had a very good performance, especially the start of the match against Monaro. Belconnen, like I said, the question is, can they put the consistency together? Their first victory since round 5. So let's see if this is the catapult for them. I just think that Tuggeranong, after last week, 2 weeks ago, they're going to put in that sort of performance that will at least warrant a draw. So I'm going to go with the draw for this one. Any thoughts on this one, Russ?
Quite simply, Tuggeranong have to win. They're 9 points from safety. There's 21 points to play for. They've got to win this football match. If they don't win this football match, then all of a sudden the gap between them and Belconnen becomes 14 points. If Monero win on the weekend, the gap between Tuggeranong and safety is 14 points with 21 to play, and you'd have to say they're down. Even though mathematically they're still in with a chance. So they must win this game on the weekend. So Mitch Stevens needs to pull a rabbit out of the hat. He needs to do whatever he's got to do to get a team together, because Belconnen United not had the greatest run this season, have they? But that win on the weekend makes a big difference from them. They were nervously looking over their shoulder at 14 points, thinking if Tuggeranong win against Olympic and then they beat Belconnen, the gap's 2. That win on the weekend for Belconnen is so big for them. They'll look at this one going, well, we're still in with a shout at the top 4 here. More importantly, we probably make ourselves safe if we get 3 points on the weekend. So this one's got the makings of a huge game for both sides. It's going to be a tough one to call. I think, Matt, with your draw, it depends on the attitude of Tuggeranong United's players. Do they believe that they can stay up? Do they believe that they've got the ability within that squad to get a result and stay up? They need to start fighting, because every point's critical. Otherwise, they're playing NPL2 next year.
And last up, Michael.
We've got Tigers FC up against Canberra, Croatia. Sunday, July 25th, 3 p.m. at Nijong Oval. Apologies for that. I was kind of having my eye on the NPL2 round of games there. But nevertheless, this is the last game that we've got for NPL1. It's obviously a cracking fixture. I'm a massive fan of the Tigers FC Canberra, Croatia games. They're always a spectacle to watch. There's a lot of quality for both teams, regardless of what Canberra, Croatia have been doing the last couple of weeks. And, they've conceded 10 goals in the last 2 games. So this is going to be a massive test for them. And Russ, you touched on the possible absentees that they might not have available to them this weekend, which could definitely hurt them. And I mean, Tigers FC are in such fantastic form at the moment. I guess we've been saying that for the last month and a half in particular, Matt, over this podcast. I mean, they've just been absolutely sensational. And it's a massive game in terms of, if Tigers manage to get a win, they'll go top of the table and still have a game in hand as well. So there's a lot riding there for Tigers FC if they do manage to get a win there at home at Nijong, albeit if it does go ahead, waiting obviously to see what happens with the weather during the week. But I'm going to go for a Tigers FC win in this one.
Yeah, look, I agree. I'm going to go with the Tigers FC win. And I know that, like I said, I know they haven't had the best of runs against Canberra, Croatia, but just the way that the last two matches have played out, like I said, unless Canberra, Croatia can work something out defensively to combat that, that's what Tigers FC do best. And like I said, I know they show up to this game all the time. I was going to go with the draw. Like if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have went with the draw on this one. But after the last couple of weeks in the form Tigers are in, I'm going to go with Tigers. But it'll be close. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a 5-1, another 5-1 repeat. But if it does, that would be an interesting hat trick, I think. But Russ, any thoughts on this massive matchup?
Way back in round one, you and me went to Nigel, and we spent an hour's car journey back from the game, having watched Canberra, Croatia beat Tigers 3-0, and absolutely cruised to victory and look incredible. Going, how is anyone going to beat this team? How is anyone going to beat Canberra, Croatia? They look so good. And we were talking about the players that had to come in, and they were just in great form. And it's just goes to show how much it's turned around, doesn't it? And Tigers FC are just in rampant form at the moment. You mentioned it, Michael. If they win on the weekend, they're top of the table. They'll still have the 2 games in hand because they've got Gungahlin and Monero Panthers to play as well. So it's in their hands if that's the case. It's still in their hands anyway. For Canberra, Croatia, they've got to win it. They have to win it. I mean, not only for the fact that they put that gap between themselves and Tigers, and then it forces Ryan Grogan's team to come and win some matches, but just for their own sanity. They've lost 5 games this season. That's more than same amount as Belconnen, and more than both of the teams below them, Gungahlin and Tigers, which is incredible. It's only the fact they've won 9 and haven't drawn any that's kept them at the top of the pile. But you just don't know what you're going to get with Canberra, Croatia. Sometimes they turn up and they look brilliant, and all too often this season they've looked quite vulnerable. And I don't know if you watched the commentary on the weekend. I went through the numbers of the players they had in the team, the back 4, the midfielders, the front 3. They're all super experienced players. They've all had, over 80 odd games of NPL experience. And for them to go out there on the weekend, wherever it's played, whether it's at Nigel, whether it's in Canberra somewhere, wherever it's going to be, to get a result is vital for them. For Tigers, well, they've had a week off, haven't they? And they've sat there and they looked at it going, well, they've just been beat 5-1. Our nearest rivals have got beaten again. They've got lots to look forward to. They've got the cup coming up as well against IPL Leichhardt. Right. Everything would point to a Tigers victory, but there's nothing as difficult to beat as a wounded animal. And Canberra, Croatia will be bitterly disappointed with what's happened the last 2 weeks. This is going to be a cracker, I think. I think there's going to be goals aplenty. I think it's going to be a really good game of football. As to which way it's going to go, well, you'd have to say on form Tigers look likely, but you never write Canberra, Croatia off.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. NPLW, Matty Moore joining us on a moment's notice. Thank you very much. Matty, how's it going today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. 2 weeks in a row. Very excited. Must have been all right last week to get another call up. So
make it 3 weeks in a row, mate, because I like to do 1 week on, 1 week off with you and Jeremy. So I don't want to ruin that. That order.
Awesome. Well, you can just get rid of Jeremy, mate. I'm happy to do it every week.
I just wish we had you on a little earlier so we can get you. There's no point tallying up your predictions now, because by the time we had you on, we're just over a round of the way through. So next season, you, Jeremy, Michael, and I. That'll be the prediction. That'll be the prediction tally.
Probably better for me that I wasn't in the predictions the way I think I've been going.
All right, let's get started. Michael, what's our first match of the week?
Yeah, so we had Belconnen United pick up a big away win at the expense of West Canberra Wanderers, 3-0 for the visitors. Bobbin with a double, and Backhouse getting herself on the score sheet as well. Like I mentioned, big win for Belconnen United as it temporarily puts them level on the ladder with Canberra, Croatia. Depending on the catch-up game between Croatia and Gungahlin, of course. The defeat for West Canberra means that it ends their 4-game winning streak. And I know that's something that we harped on last episode about how well they had been doing. And obviously it would have been an amazing feat for them to make it 5 in a row, but it just wasn't meant to be it. And, they lost to quality opposition in Belconnen United. There's no denying that. It'll be interesting to see how they match up against Olympic, whom they have not been able to beat this season. So that'll be interesting. And but their form has proven they can win in any circumstance. And we'll definitely be fighting for a top 4 spot come the season end. What were your thoughts on this result, Matty?
Yeah, it was probably the 3-0 probably surprised me a little bit. I think last week I thought it'd be a draw, so another reason not to put me in the predictions pool next year. And
well, that's what it's for. It's all about a laugh.
Yeah.
Especially NPL1. You should say NPL1 results. It's horrible.
And I think I was actually quite impressed with Belconnen's approach to this. They really took away some of the natural threats that West Canberra were going for. The ability in that, and we spoke about that, Melrose is a hard place to go against West Canberra. It's so tight, it's so small, and their defensive structures have been so good. And Belconnen United made a really deliberate attempt on the weekend to go around as opposed to going through the middle like they've done traditionally. And that's where they've sort of had some problems against Canberra, Croatia and things like that as well. And there was a couple of movements, especially around the 20-minute mark, where I think you can basically watch it go from the right back and shuffle all the way around through to the left back. And they actually, do a little combination play and release Ewan down the line. And that was something we haven't really seen a lot of. And I think that posed some different questions for West Canberra that they struggled to adjust to. And their sort of desire to, when they won the ball, to go forward immediately started to cause them a bit of issues as well. They weren't really direct, but they weren't really direct in central areas, which really caused them a problem because Michaela Thornton in particular sat a little bit deeper. And she was able to pick a lot of those things off on the weekend. And the two centre backs had a bit of an easier a go because the ball wasn't really getting in behind like it had traditionally. And even when they played out through the goalkeeper, there was a lot of balls that were longer and a bit direct, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but because they were so central, Belconnen just had the numbers and they were easily picking them off. And I think the addition of Sam Price through that middle area as well was really important. On the weekend, it gave the ability for Thornton to set off because Price can pick apart a defence, and in a small field like that, she was a really valuable contributor. And although they didn't need her as much, she could potentially be a little bit of a game changer for them going forward. She hasn't spent as much time in first grade as people might have predicted, but it was an interesting one that certainly fizzled out at about the 50th minute mark. Like, it was pretty much all running for Belconnen from there. And they're probably a little bit disappointed not to get a few more goals. I know there was a great save towards the top right-hand corner about 60th minute mark by the West Canberra keeper, which was brilliant. And, as you guys mentioned with the Canberra-Croatia Gungahlin game postponed to be equal on points, you'd rather have those points in the bag and put the pressure back on Canberra-Croatia now to win and get that buffer back than be chasing. So that was pleasing. Look, West Canberra, we wondered what it'd be like when they came up against the two top dogs, and what we found is that they've still got some improvement to go, which is fine, but top 4 aspirations should well and truly still be at the forefront of their mind. And I think they've still got the ability to pick up points against that group around them to potentially solidify themselves and stay in that top 4 role. So, the Belconnen will be happy with the result, and West Canberra won't be discouraged by what happened either, I don't think, yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. It was, but like you mentioned, very, very important victory for Belconnen United. All right, next up, this is a match I covered with Paul Townsley. Shout out to Paul Townsley for joining me on a moment's notice. It was just a bit of we're supposed to do, of course, the Canberra Croatia and Yoogali match, and then the cancellation of the fields, and then we thought we might be doing the Belco West Canberra match, and then we ended up being told this is the match we're doing, and then Paul did it on a moment's notice, so credit to him. It was 4-0, Canberra Olympic, big victory over Tuggeranong United. Vandenbroek with a hat-trick and Ashley Sykes with a goal. Huge win for Canberra Olympic, as this puts them back in the top 4 above West Canberra on goal difference, though. Very good performance from Vandenbroek. She was the standout, hat-trick. Her third goal, I thought, was her best. It was sort of the epitome of timing a run correctly. You could see she held off her run, looked to the side and just pushed on. Simple, but I thought it was very good because too often you don't see strikers timing their run, or at least looking to time their run. And it was like the epitome of it. And I thought it was terrific in that regard. Heather Garriock made a return after, of course, being on the Euros coverage on Optus. She was pivotal in that deep lying playmaker role. It wasn't like the match that we saw against Gungahlin Matty, where she pushed more forward. She was more of a deep lying playmaker in this regard, still creating a lot though. One player I don't think gets a lot of praise is Sienna Farah. I thought she was terrific at right back. They play with a 4 at the back this time, not a 3 at the back, and she created a lot. She started a lot of runs, a lot of transitions going forward. Very solid defensively as well. She's done very well this season. In terms of Tuggeranong United, though, unfortunately, they once again fall short. But I thought you can see the progression they made this season. The way they, the positioning they had on the field was really good. The way they pressed, especially in the first half, was really good. Unfortunately, Sophie Rolfe got injured just before halftime, went off at halftime. Sophie Buey once again had to come in goals. I believe she was the one that played in goals last week. She played a half. This one, I'll tell you what, she was terrific. She made some I know she conceded 2 goals in the second half, but she made some fantastic saves, saving Ashley Sykes. Not a lot, a lot of the general keepers find it hard to save Ashley Sykes, and she's saved a couple of her shots. Vandenbroek, she saved a couple of shots, who was on fire. Like I said, Vandenbroek was woman of the match in that one. So credit to Sophie Buey. She did very well there. So still positives to take out from Tuggeranong. Like I said, only a matter of time. They are going to get that victory. But unfortunately for them, it's always back against the wall with some sort of situation they've got going. What were your thoughts on this one, Matty?
Yeah, look, it was an improved performance from Olympic. We saw last week that they were terrible out of the gate. And your point about the timing of the run, I think, is absolutely crucial. And you bang on about how important it is, because it probably cost Olympic the game last week in the second half, where Vandenbroek and Sykes just couldn't combine to get those free shots on goal. So Nicole Berg will be thrilled that they've been able to fix that in the week. The addition of Garriock was important. They really missed that controlling influence last week. They just didn't have somebody in a central area, and it doesn't have to be a central midfielder. It can be a central defender as well, but they didn't have somebody in that central area who could just get everybody to take a breath and just relax and sort of regain that composure. And her addition was probably vital in the way that they controlled the game and progressed down the field. You're right about Farah. Her efforts have been fantastic. Another one for me who's probably goes a little bit unnoticed is Jameson, the captain. Her work around the park. Not a hugely vocal leader from what I've seen, but I've rarely see her play a bad game, and she's able to shift into that central area of defence if needs to. She's got the ability to play wide and overlap and ask different questions. So she's another one that it's going to be really key in this sort of drive home for Canberra Olympic in the next few weeks. So they'll be happy, because last week was that would have hurt, really. I mean, they lost a game in 45 minutes and they couldn't get back into it, but they seem to have made some really quick corrections, which is positive. And let's be honest, the Tuggeranong team that's improving on a pitch at O'Connor that was a bit soft and a bit boggy in patches. That's easy to come unstuck and have 2 bad weeks in a row. But the fact that they've been able to get back in the top 4 on goal difference and create Gungahlin have got a game in hand as well, but create a 4-point gap from them gives them a little bit of breathing room. And Tuggeranong, again, they continue to improve. It's probably you mentioned the pressing. That's probably the most organised press and consistent press that I've seen from them so far this year. And we've said it before, Paola Romero's influence on this unit is continuing to grow and grow every week. And the third cycle of matches that we're about to come to, they'll certainly show a vast improvement. They'll be worried about the Sophie Rolfe injury, no matter how good the backup did. And I think for them, it's just a matter of getting all those sort of key personnel on the park at the same time for Tuggeranong. They always seem to be, just missing someone, whether it's a Steph Coates or an Emma or a Condon or a Rolf, or a McGee or something like that. They're always missing someone. If they can get that best 11 on the park, they're going to create absolute havoc. And we saw that with West Canberra a few weeks ago. So, the positive thing from their point of view is they went out and got absolutely towed up by Belconnen. And they've been able to pull it together, put some structures in place, get that press a little bit more organised, and ask some really challenging questions of another top 4 contender. So I think that, there's nothing but upside there for them at the same time.
Yeah, so our next matchup and our last matchup of this round, seeing as though Gungahlin versus Canberra, Croatia was cancelled, and that match will be rescheduled at some point, was Canberra United Academy picking up a massive win at the expense of Wagga City Wanderers, a big 6-0 win. Ruth Muller with 2, Perry, Christopherson with a double, and Grove getting on the score sheet as well. A big win for Canberra United Academy. It puts them in 3rd place, which holds them in good stead. It puts them 2 points ahead of West Canberra and Olympic as well. So that just boasts their top 4 chances even more. And it gives them a little bit of consistency now that we haven't been able to see throughout the year. They've got 2 wins in a row. We can't say that that's happened to them that many times this season. They've really struggled for, a good run of games or to develop any sort of consistent performances on the pitch, and that's what it seems like they're able to do it at the moment, and they're doing it in a good moment as well. As the season is nearing its end, they're really looking like they can put a bit of form together with 2 wins in a row now, 3rd place secured for the time being. And let's not forget, before last week, they hadn't had a victory since round 8 against Canberra, Croatia. So that just shows how quickly their fortunes have turned right around. But at the end of the day, it's another tough day at the office for Wagga City Wanderers. It's a rough away trip to make down to Canberra, especially considering the form that the academy find themselves in now. Matty, what did you make of this result? I mean, I touched on it there. We said a few weeks ago that we weren't really sure where the academy were going to end up. That they weren't able to put a good run of games together, and now it seems that they've got it together a little bit on the pitch, and that's back-to-back wins now. They're obviously in 3rd place now, 2 points ahead. They've managed to turn things around at the right time, haven't they?
Yeah, and that victory on the weekend was key for them, because they got the win against Olympic last week, and with the win that Olympic had, they would have seen themselves outside the 4 again, and it would have kind of undone everything they did the week before. They'll be really pleased with Ruth Muller in particular, because Hunt didn't play, and we know she picked up a bit of a wrist injury last week. So my assumption is that's what's kept her out, and we don't know how serious that is. But Hunt's been such a vital presence for them from a physical point of view, as well as a little bit from an experience point of view. So Ruth Muller doesn't have the experience, but she's been a recognised goal scorer since she was about 12, right? She's tall, she's strong, she can find the back of the net, and her introduction there would have been really, really key. And I think the thing that would have been really pleasing for Vicky and her team is that this was a bit more of a complete performance than last week. So we saw them absolutely decimate Olympic in the first 45 last week, and then disappear for about 30 minutes. And it was only in the last 15 minutes they were able to scramble enough together for the victory. So this was a far more complete match from their point of view. That they're getting used to life without Annie Grove there anymore. She's off in the US in Baltimore doing her thing, and they do seem to be hitting form. You're right, Michael, that the key for them will be what happens in the next probably week or 2, because you mentioned the win against Canberra, Croatia, and it just seemed to drop from there. It's going to be really important for them to pick up the points that they didn't pick up against your West Canberras and your Gungahlins in particular, where it's been sort of tight contest. I think they've got a big game against Canberra, Croatia this weekend, so they'll be fresh for that. You imagine Croatia, given they've had the weekend off, but the patterns of play seem to be there. It's really interesting to see that there's a couple more of the recognised reserve grade players that are getting a bit more of a run, almost like they've tried to freshen up and put a bit of pressure on those more experienced players. But positive overall for the academy, and now it's about probably getting in the next 3 weeks. They probably want 2 out of 3 wins in the next 3 weeks, and that should make them reasonably safe in that top 4 battle. I say reasonably safe because like we said, they hadn't won since they beaten Canberra, Croatia, and they were struggling to score. So real positive. Wagga City, look, it's hard. You go into a synthetic pitch that's big too. Like it's a big pitch, Hawker, and their pressing game was just slightly off yesterday. I thought Wagga to the best of their endeavours, and that makes it that little bit more challenging on a team against a team who's driven to reinforce their top 4 credentials, and who are trying to ensure, especially with some of the younger guys like Ruth Muller, they're trying to ensure that their position in that first grade squad is maintained, as well as people trying to replace your Annie Groves and your things like that. So Wagga, it's hard. I don't envy them travelling every couple of weeks and still trying to, I guess, have the new players that they've brought in recently adapt to the structures and the systems, and it is a challenge. And I got nothing but credit for Sam and the crew down there, because these guys turn up week in, week out, and they do it. And again, for them, the positives are that they haven't conceded 5 goals in a patch. They've conceded, might have conceded a couple close together, but they've been able to reset and go again and push. And I'll be really interested to see the next time Wagga and Tuggeranong go against each other, because 2 teams that are vastly improved that we keep thinking might be on the verge of doing something a little bit special in terms of victory, and it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out the next time these guys come across each other.
All right, let's get straight into the round 15 preview / predictions. Let's start with the only Saturday matchup of the round. Of course, everything is weather permitting, considering the forecast for the weekend. First up, we've got Belconnen United against Wagga City Wanderers, Saturday, 24th of July at 3 p.m. at McKellar Park. Jeremy said Belco for this one. I'm going to agree. I'm going to say Belconnen as well. Belconnen seem to be absolutely ruthless when they face the Wagga City Wanderers. Matty?
Yeah, Belconnen for me. You're right. I don't know what it is about Wagga that brings out the goals for Belconnen, but they seem to do it. And I would expect Belconnen to be on an absolute tear for goals this weekend, given that they play on the Saturday. That'll put them we would expect that will put them 3 points ahead on the ladder, boost that goal difference, and put all the pressure back on Canberra, Croatia for what is potentially a really tricky match for them that we'll talk about shortly.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Belconnen United in this one as well. I think they're just going to have obviously a bit too much, seeing that they're one of the premier sides in this NPLW season. They're going to be too good, I feel.
Now, this next one is a very, very interesting one. West Canberra Wanderers against Canberra Olympic, Sunday, 25th of July, 12:45 p.m. at Melrose Synthetic. Let's not forget, Olympic have quite a few players that used to play for West Canberra Wanderers last season. Olympic also do have the upper hand this season against West Canberra Wanderers. I believe they've gotten both the victories, both very close. I think one was 2-1 and the other was 1-0, I think. Or it was 2-1. Regardless, there's only 1 goal difference between them. After what I saw from the weekend against Canberra Olympic, I believe Canberra Olympic are going to get the victory in this one. It's going to be very, very close, though. Rachel Hardwick as well came on. I forgot to mention, with only 5 minutes or something to go. She had a few injury concerns. That was a later call up. So it looks like she's getting back to full fitness as well. That's also going to be a boost for Olympic. Yeah, I'm going to go for an Olympic victory in this one. It's going to be a close matchup, though. Michael?
I'm leaning towards draw.
All right.
In this one, I think that both teams are, evenly matched, and I think that they're sort of positions in the table sort of highlight those feelings. There's not too much to separate them, although Canberra Olympic obviously coming off that impressive performance against Tuggeranong United, whereas West Canberra Wanderers are going to be looking to bounce back after, their match against Belconnen. But I think that it's going to be a draw in this one. That's the feeling I'm getting.
Matty?
Yeah, I'm with you, Michael. I think it's a draw as well. I think the yo-yo form that we've seen from Canberra Olympic probably continues this week. West Canberra, as you said, out to re-establish and prove a little bit of a point. I think we end up with a score draw somewhere. So West Canberra probably cursing me because I said that against Belconnen and they lost. But yeah,
I think Jeremy did as well. To be fair, it wasn't just you.
Oh, good. I'll blame Jeremy then. Good on Jeremy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this one ends up a draw as well.
And Jeremy says a Canberra Olympic victory. All right, Canberra Croatia, Canberra United Academy. This should be a very interesting one. Sunday, July 25th, 2:30 p.m. at Deakin Stadium. Let's not forget, Canberra United Academy haven't lost against Deakin in competitive play this season in terms of the league. The first match of the season was a draw, and the second one was an impressive 3-1 victory for Canberra United Academy. Despite that, Canberra Croatia have really solidified themselves since that loss against the Academy. They've been on an absolute tear. They've steamrolled a lot of the teams. They've been very, very impressive, very, very efficient, very, very good defensively. Despite their very good form against Canberra Croatia, I'm going to go for, in terms of the Academy, I'm going to go for a Canberra Croatia victory here. Jeremy says the same, but this is going to be a close one, and I do think CUA are going to put up a very good performance. Matty?
Yeah, so I think the Academy's got a really good opportunity here with Canberra Croatia not playing last week, and I made the comment before that they'll be fresh, but they will also not play a competitive game for X amount of days.
It might sort of halt the steam train that is.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think last week I referred to them as the big red machine, and they certainly were that. But I think in the first 20 minutes, if the Academy can get a goal in the first 20 minutes and really spook Canberra Croatia, then it leads. It gives them the opportunity to probably pinch a draw. I still think Canberra Croatia are going to do it. I think once they work that rust off, I think from about the 30th minute mark onwards, they'll start to run the show. But the key will be for the Academy that first 20 minutes. Can you get a little bit of shock and awe and set yourselves up for a battle for the remaining 70 minutes?
Michael?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you boys. I'm going to go for Canberra Croatia in this one. But I do think, Canberra United Academy, judging by their performances against Canberra Croatia this season, from what we've seen, probably are the best side in terms of having Canberra Croatia's number. You know what I mean? So obviously the draw and a victory to have to their name against this Canberra Croatia outfit is definitely a bit of a mental edge that they'll have that should present a bit of a factor in this matchup. But I think given how good Canberra Croatia are at the sort of top of the table, I expect them to get the victory in this one, but it certainly won't be easy. I wouldn't even be surprised if CUA were to get another win in this one, to be honest, but I do think Croatia are going to be the winners for me.
Yeah, it's probably interesting. It's the only black mark on Canberra Croatia's season, really, isn't it? Like they're the only ones that they haven't been able to, put to the sword in some way, shape, or form. And I just wonder how that drives them, whether it comes into it all. Nick and the team might not particularly care. If it's me, I'm making that a real point as we head out to the game on the weekend to say, well, this is the only team all year that we haven't beaten. We need to, not in a mean way, we need to show them who's boss heading into finals, because if they're there, we don't want, a bunch of 17-year-olds buzzing around full of confidence when we meet them, because God knows what happens in a finals game.
And last up, we've got Gungahlin United against Tuggeranong United. Sunday, July 25th, 3 p.m. I think it's safe to say, though, it won't be a Gungahlin enclosed. So I think for the tagline, I'm just going to have to put
Definitely not.
to be determined or something like that, because that's definitely, I think that's definitely a guarantee of that one. Look, I'm going to say a Gungahlin United victory here. In saying that, though, Tuggeranong United might fancy themselves in this one. Gungahlin United don't exactly have the best of form going into this one, and we all know that Gungahlin United, Tuggies have improved quite a bit. The issue for them is, will Sophie Rolfe be there? Will she not be there? I do think, like, even though Buey did do well in goals, I thought she did pretty well pressing forward last week. She was their most dangerous player probably going forward in that first half. So they could be missing that, of course, that outlet going forward against them. And there's, unfortunately for Tuggies, there's always something not going their way. Jeremy says Gungahlin victory as well. Michael, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Gungahlin United victory. I mean, I do want to highlight the importance that I placed on how big of a weekend we thought Gungahlin were going to have against Canberra, Croatia, in terms of the context of their season. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how they come back after having a week off, and if that's going to do the players any good, or if they're going to be a bit rusty to begin with, and then having to work themselves into the game against a hard-working Tuggeranong United outfit. So it'll all just depend on what Gungahlin United turns up. But I would have loved to see that that game last week. So it's unfortunate that that match had to get postponed. But nevertheless, Gungahlin United, the motive still remains the same. They need to get a victory, and they really need to start building some form, because they've been way too inconsistent this season, and especially for the personalities that they have in their team. They should be doing better, and I expect that that's what Diego feels as well. Obviously, it's a tough competition, and there are a lot of good teams, but I think he would be expecting better out of his outfit, and then I think it can, that they can get a good win this weekend, and that'll give them a lot of confidence going forward, especially when they have to play this rescheduled match against Canberra, Croatia, that could prove pivotal for their top four chances.
Matty?
Yeah, look, Michael was spot on last week in terms of the importance of that game against Canberra, Croatia, and I wonder from a mental aspect now how missing that game and having to go and play Tuggeranong, and no offense to Tuggeranong, they're not Canberra, Croatia. That's a bit of a letdown for them and how they respond to that. They're 4 points down, 4 points out of the 4. They've got a game in hand. By the time they kick off, they'll have a pretty good idea in terms of that West Canberra Olympic game as well, which might mean that they're, further out. They'll be further out of the 4 one way or another, whether it's a draw or a win to somebody. And they just, look, the reality is they can't afford not to take 3 points here. And I know I said last week I don't trust them, and I don't expect them to make the 4, and I stand by that. Today. But the reality is, if they can't pick up 3 points here, then they are definitively done for the year, and they'll know it, irrespective of what happens in that makeup game. They're probably going to be too far out, because we're in the sprint now. There's 7 weeks left. You end up 7 points behind with 7 weeks to go. That's a big ask.
Look, that's going to be an interesting matchup as well. The all interesting matchup this weekend. A lot of subplots in all of them. All right, that's us done for NPLW. Thank you as always, Matty.
Cheers. Thanks heaps, boys.
Thanks, Matty.
See you next week.
All right, that's us for NPL1. On to NPL2. Let's start with a huge result for Wagga City Wanderers on the weekend. 3-2 victory over Brindabella Blues. Blaskovic and Gibbs with the goals for Brindabella. Lucas, Suleiman, and Ocheng with the goals for Wagga City Wanderers. Like I mentioned, huge victory, which catapults Wagga City Wanderers from last place to sixth place. All 3 scorers have sort of grown over the season and produced once again this week. Let's see if they can use this as a platform, Wagga City Wanderers, moving forward. But the Brindies, though, they'll be bitterly disappointed that they conceded in the final stages of the matchup. And once again, They were fighting from behind. They conceded first, which has been all too often their Achilles heel this season. They've conceded first and they've fought back either to a drawing position or a winning position. And unfortunately for them, this also means that they drop from 6th place to 7th place. I think they're only above Western Molonglo on goal difference at the moment. So they're technically both tied last. So for Brindabella, it's sort of deja vu in that regard, that they've found themselves having to fight back, but they'll be disappointed that they let in a goal in the dying stages of the matchup. What are your thoughts on this result, Russ?
Sorry, before we pass it over to Russ, I just want to say, I don't know how anyone hasn't mentioned that Russ is playing for Brindabella Blues now, and he's managed to get himself in the score for him.
I did think that originally, but it didn't come through in my mind today. But I saw that. Yeah,
I would have told you if it had been me. I'd been chatting about it for ages. It was young Joshua Gibbs who got that one, wasn't it?
You would have posted that all over.
100%. It would have been the greatest goal ever scored. Well done, Gibbsy. Great finish, son. What I was going to say is that lightning doesn't strike twice. They say, well, it does if you're Brindabella Blues, doesn't it? Jacob Ocheng in the 90th minute. Again, knocked them out of the FFA Cup, coming from behind with a goal in stoppage time to win 5-4 in Coolwell. And he's done the same again, an away game against the Brindabella Blues in stoppage time as well to win 3-2. And they must be sick to the back teeth of the side of him. You said Zoran Glavinec's team got themselves into a winning position at 2-1 and conceded twice in 20 minutes. And Wagga City, pleased for them. They don't get many points on their travels. So to come to Canberra and get a victory like that would have made that trip back home ever so sweet. And as you say, it propels them from the bottom up into 6th. And we've got a little battle there, though, those bottom 3, haven't we, with Western, Brindabella and Wagga as to who's going to get the wooden spoon in NPL2. And that's a good 3 points for Wagga City Wanderers. For Brindabella Blues, well, it's disappointing off the back of their good point against Yoogali to lose to Wagga City Wanderers. And it's that inconsistency, I think, that's frustrating for Zoran Glavinec. But he's got a really young group of guys.
And their win against Western midweek.
Well, midweek one, yeah. So, I mean, it's just with a young group of players, that's what happens sometimes. You get that inconsistency. But, good result for Wagga City Wanderers. Congratulations to Dave Leonard and his boys.
Michael, what's a last matchup of the NPL2 round? Seems a bit short, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very short. We had a lot of cancelled games over this past weekend, but we had Yoogali at home against Queanbeyan City. The visitors getting a 2-0 win. Goals from Adams from the penalty spot and Tomeski finding the back of the net as well. It's a huge win for Queanbeyan after their disappointing match against O'Connor Knights. The win takes them 7 points behind O'Connor and ANU, but they both have their match against each other. Nevertheless, it's an impressive result considering it's always tough. We always talk about the tough travel, about going to Griffith, getting your squad ready for an away game like that, and getting the win. It just makes that experience all the much better. You don't want to be going out on a long away trip and coming up empty-handed. So well done to Queanbeyan City for going out there and getting the win so that they can, at least for the meantime, keep their status in the top 4 intact. On the flip side, it's a disappointing result for Yoogali, not only because they lost, but also because this means that they're now level on points with White Eagles. And the reason why we mention that is because Eagles have 2 games in hand. So it's not great for Yoogali, but it's fantastic for White Eagles. And obviously they have an opportunity to go 6 points clear in 4th, leaving Yoogali behind in 5th if they're successful in that quest. Russ, what do you make of this result for Queanbeyan City? A bit of a much needed bounce back win after their disappointing result against O'Connor.
Very good result for Queanbeyan City, considering the circumstances that they found themselves in. Rory Larkin, their goalkeeper, didn't travel. Phil Teleski went in, and he was injured in the first couple of minutes. So I think Vasco Petrovski put the goalkeeper's shirt on after about 20 minutes, I think. So they played with 70 minutes with a centre-back in nets against a side that in Danny Roche has got one of the best strikers in the competition. They've not only won, they've kept a clean sheet. And they've done it in some style. Michael Adams' penalties, you mentioned Dean Tomeski on the score sheet as well, 2-0 away from home is a perfect away performance, really. And they're probably not going up unless there's a complete disaster between ANU and O'Connor. That's where the battle is for promotion to MPL1. I mean, it could happen. They could both capitulate. I doubt it. So they're going to cement themselves into that top 4, and it's all about winning the grand final now for Queanbeyan City to give themselves something tangible. For Yoogali, disappointing. They seem to be getting themselves into a situation where they're in the 4 and they're giving themselves an opportunity, and then they drop off again. In the defence of Luke Sanson and his lads, 7 players under the age of 23, I think he said, on the weekend in their starting 11, which is quite incredible, really. And you've got to remember, and we keep saying it, Griffith isn't that big. All these lads that they've got are living there, and they're getting a team from that community to play. I mean, they bring people in,
and there's still so many clubs in Griffith as well.
Despite incredible, yeah. I mean, it's a football town, and they love their football there, and it's an incredible achievement for those guys to keep travelling, etc., etc. We mention it every week, so they'll be disappointed that they've been beaten 2-0, but this is a season for them. Hopefully, if they can scrape into the top 4, they can give themselves a chance, or it's a chance for them to rebuild with a younger group of lads and push on. And maybe achieve what we saw in the FFA Cup when they pushed Tigers, who are now looking likely for pushing towards a league championship, to the 90th minute plus.
Absolutely. Matt, we ready to move on to the predictions for round 15?
Yeah, before we do, I just want to mention how you mentioned the clean sheet, and I think that's important for Queanbeyan City. We haven't seen them we've seen them score a lot of goals this season, but not keep a lot of clean sheets. So I think that's very important for them. And it's more importantly, it's a mental win for them, because now they put themselves 7 points off the top 2. I know the top 2 still have a match in hand, but at least mentally, Queanbeyan City will be in a much better position, knowing that they at least got their win before they head into the other matches.
So what I'm hearing, if you're Gabby Wilk, is that Rory Larkin doesn't play anymore, and Vasco Petrovski is now your goalkeeper. Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, well, he got a clean sheet.
Clean sheet.
Gabby Wilk will probably keep him in goal as opposed to putting him in the back line.
I saw a video of Rory Larkin playing up front in the under-23s a couple of weeks ago, and he pinged one pigeon top corner with the left foot, I think. So, I mean, maybe there's a bit of a role reversal with the team and throwing it around. I'm sure Mark Shields wouldn't mind a run at centre-back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of a bit of a theme, because also in the women's, in the match I did with Paul Townsley, Sophie Buey had to second half come on again for Sophie Rolfe, and we'll mention it there. But she let in 2 goals, but she made some fantastic saves on Ash Sykes and Van den Broek as well. So it's a bit of a theme here. Players who are not usually keeper are doing pretty well for themselves off that. And before we move into the matches for the weekend, O'Connor Knights, ANUFC, that massive matchup postponed. Probably a midweek matchup. Hopefully we can get that on Bar TV. I was going to say,
we need to see if we can explore the possibilities of where that's being played and see if we can get that one, because that's huge. Whoever wins that is probably going up.
And Canberra White Eagles and Western Molonglo was also postponed over at Woden Park enclosed. Michael, what are our matches for round 15?
Well, first up, we've got Queanbeyan City up against the Brindabella Blues, Saturday, July 24th. 3:15 High Street in Queanbeyan. I'm going to go for a Queanbeyan City win here to go on the back of their result this past weekend. It was an important victory for them, and to obviously keep the clean sheet as well only just adds to the importance of that result, and them having that slight bit of hope that that maybe ANU and O'Connor might slip up. In positions like that, they just have to keep on winning. So I'm going to go for Queanbeyan City.
Yeah, look, Brindabella Blues, I know they always step up for this matchup, but considering the narrative this season and considering Queanbeyan's good performance on the weekend, it's hard to look past the Queanbeyan City victory, but I always could be wrong, but I'll go with Queanbeyan City on this one. What do you think about this matchup, Russ?
Yeah, Queanbeyan just got to keep winning, haven't they? I mean, we mentioned the gap's 7 points. They've played the same amount of games. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that ANU and O'Connor draw, and Queanbeyan win their games, and all of a sudden that gap's reduced, and it puts the pressure on the top 2. But on the weekend, you'd have to say, based on form and on the league table, that Queanbeyan will win the game, although Brindabella will make it very hard for them, because they tend to do reasonably well against Queanbeyan.
Yes, they do. Moving on, we've got Canberra White Eagles up against ANU. A classic fixture up there at Woden Park enclosed, Saturday, July 24th at 3:15. this is going to be a tough game for ANU. I think White Eagles always seem to try and make it difficult, especially when playing at home, but in particular when playing against ANU. I know there's like a bit of a grudge match there, most definitely between the two clubs. It's a bit of a historic fixture in NPL2 to say the least, but I'm going to go for an ANU victory here. They're just like O'Connor. They're just the two steam trains in NPL2 at the moment that look like they and prove that they can't be stopped, I should say. So I'm going to go for ANU.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. White Eagles always sharp for this one. It was a draw in the first round of the season, and then I believe ANU won the second round matchup between these two. I'm going to go with an ANU victory. Like you said, they just seem like a steam train along with O'Connor at the moment, but White Eagles will put up a good fight. Thoughts on this one, Ross?
Yeah, when you're in this two-horse race as it is at the moment with O'Connor and ANU, they say concentrate on your results and don't worry about what the opposition are going to do. But if you're O'Connor, you're looking at this and going, well, where are they going to drop points? Where could they drop points? And White Eagles away could well be the situation that they do. It's not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination, is it? It's a tough place to go. It's a tough team to play against when their fans get in full voice again at the Nest if it's on there on the weekend. So it's going to be a tricky one for them. I think ANU might just have too much for White Eagles on the day, but there won't be much in this by any chance of imagination. And is this the weekend that ANU slip up? Well, we'll wait and see.
Next up, we've got Yoogali up against Western Molonglo, Saturday, July 24th, 4 p.m. at Solomad Stadium. I'm going to go for a Yoogali victory in this one, lads. I do expect them, playing at home as well, where they do play particularly well, to really sort of put themselves out there and put on a good performance at the expense of a Western Molonglo side that has struggled for predominantly most of the season. So I'm going to go for a Yoogali win there.
Yeah, look, I'll agree. I've got to go for Yoogali victory. They're going to be raring to go. And unfortunately for Western Molonglo, we keep mentioning the injuries, but that usually affects them whenever they get on the road to Wagga and Griffith. They always seem to have less numbers, and then they have to call up players from their 23s. And I'm not trying, and that's nothing against their 23s. Their 23s team is one of the best in the under 23s comp. But the issue is they have to back up doing 90 minutes there, and then some of the players might have to do 90 minutes again or play a half or whatever the situation is. That happened against Wagga when they got some points last time. So we'll see how they go. But I'm going to go for Yoogali victory here. Any thoughts on this one, Ross?
Yeah, ditto what I said about O'Connor Knights for Yoogali. Yeah. They'll be looking at White Eagles game on the weekend, going, well, if ANU can beat them, which they could do, then we can win against Western Molonglo. We're back in the top four, aren't we? And White Eagles have got their games now. One of them is against Queanbeyan. They might lose that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. You'd have to expect Yoogali to win at home against Western Molonglo, given everything you've just said about injuries and that kind of thing. And they'll look to bounce back from that game against Queanbeyan City. I'd fancy Yoogali myself in this one as well.
All right. Lastly, lads, we've got O'Connor Knights up against Wagga City Wanderers. Gungahlin enclosed Sunday, July 25th at 3 p.m. I mean, very much for the same reasons I was talking about ANU up against White Eagles. I mean, O'Connor's just a freak train. No one can really stop either of those two sides at the moment. It's just a very tight battle between those two teams in terms of who's going to eventually slightly nudge the other one off to claim promotion to MPL1. So I'm going to go for O'Connor Knights to get the victory in this game. There's just a lot on the line for them. And like Russ said, you can't help but feel to look over your shoulder and just see what the other team's doing and who they're playing and where they may possibly drop points. But because it's neck and neck and the games are getting, the games are accumulating and there's not so much left in the season, it's going to come right down to the wire. So you can't help but look over your shoulder just to see what the other team is doing on a week-to-week basis. But I'm going to go for an O'Connor Knights victory over Wagga City Wanderers. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, look, I'm going to agree. I'm going to go with an O'Connor victory. But Wagga have put themselves in a good position with that victory over Brindabella Blues. So at least they're going to be on a high in that regard. And away from home as well, they got that response. So if you're Wagga City Wanderers, this is the best position that you want to be in heading into a matchup with the likes of an O'Connor Knights. Thoughts on this one, Russ?
Yeah, I was going to say whoever does the fixture list doesn't like Wagga City much because this is the second of 3 away trips to Canberra in successive weeks. They've been to Brindabella. They have O'Connor this week. Next week, they go to ANU. And then if that's not enough, they follow that up with a home game against Yoogali in the Riverina Derby. So they've got 3 very tough weeks coming up for Dave Leonard and his team. He must be looking at that fixture list and going, thanks very much, Capital Football, for looking after us there and making us travel at the tail end of a long season. 3 away games in succession. And this one will be a tough one for them. I mean, O'Connor Knights have been putting all to the sword, as you guys have been mentioning. I was lucky enough to do that game at Queanbeyan City a couple of weeks ago, and they look brilliant. They won 2-0. They could have had more. They look a form side. They've got threats all over the park. Wagga City will battle, and they'll make it difficult for them, but you'd have to say that the Knights are the favourites for that one.
That's us done and dusted for NPL2. And that's us for the show. Thank you very much, guys. Russ, thanks for joining us again. Any last words before you head off? Do you know any stories about any midweek fixtures that are being done?
Stories, there's lots of midweek fixtures. None that I know of at the moment. They haven't been sorted just yet. It's interesting to see. I think some clubs are playing their cards close to their chest right now. Before they organise those fixtures to see where the land lies for a bit in those games. But they've got to be done sooner rather than later. Yeah. Whilst we don't like games being postponed and it's annoying, it does mean that there's some midweek football that we can bring you on Bar TV as well, which it helps the week go a bit quicker, I think, doesn't it?
And hopefully we can get that ANU and O'Connor game. That'd be great.
That'd be interesting. We'll see if we can get that. I mean, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? I think the response we got from the NPL2 match, and thanks to O'Connor and Queanbeyan City for stamping the funds to do that, the response we got from people watching, from people at the ground as well, was great to see the cameras there. And it felt like Andy Bennell said, it felt like a proper football occasion. And you were there, and you felt it, didn't you?
And if it's at O'Connor enclosed, I do remember you guys did a few matches there. Was it when... I remember specifically Riverina Rhinos against Gungahlin match that was there one year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we can. O'Connor enclosed is fine. We were there on the weekend, so I mean, if it's, you probably wouldn't be able to play there midweek, would you? Because there's no lights. But
that is true. Yeah,
I mean, you could pull your cars up on the far side, with lamps on and everything. But I'd imagine that. I mean, you think Woden Park is probably the likelihood would have to shift that little scaffold that they've got over at Melrose. See if we could dump it on the halfway line there on the other side and film it. So we'll see how we go, but I mean, I think it'd be good. Look, just hoping that the weather doesn't play too much havoc with this weekend and we do get some football on TV, because finding all the women's games where we were going to go to last week was entertaining, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, there was a few changes in that one, but it was good that we finally ended up at a match in that regard.
And thanks for having me on again as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome anytime, Russ. Michael, any last words before we head off?
Well, I just hope that, the state league fixtures come back. I haven't played a game in a couple of weeks, so I'm getting a bit dusty. I'm gonna have to dust the cobwebs off again.
For being harsh, Summer said you haven't played a game for quite some time, Michael.
Look, I'll be back on that pitch again soon, wreaking havoc, I'm sure. So I'm itching. I'm ready to go. I just hope that the weather doesn't really sort of play too much of an influence and get in the way, because
not for Canberra.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see what happens. But nevertheless, there's a lot of football to be played, a lot of football to be watched on Bar TV. So very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. As always, lots of midweek action over the next couple of weeks coming up, as well as your regular weekend action. Fingers crossed, weather deeming. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.